If you're thinking of backing Elder Scrolls, hold up just a second because I am here to try and cure your FOMO. These are the 5 reasons you shouldn't back the Elder Scrolls Betrayal of the Second Era. My name's Chris George and welcome to Room and Board. And yes, I've heard you. People have been flooding my comment section saying, when are we going to get the 5 reasons you shouldn't back Elder Scrolls? Please, somebody save us from our FOMO. We want to purchase this game, and honestly, it's a pretty fun game. I've played it. I've actually played a preview of this game, and so through this video, I'm going to go through my experiences. I'll go through that in a little bit more depth than I've ever done before because I've actually played the game, and I know that there's not a lot of gameplay content out there, so I want to give you my full experience about what you can expect with the Elder Scrolls, and then also provide the devil's advocate side of things, the alternate approach to perhaps talk you down off that ledge, or make sure that when the Elder Scrolls arrives at your door, you are equally as excited as you are now when you hit this back button. That's what this series is all about. I do this whenever a campaign crosses over $1 million, and the Elder Scrolls has already crossed over $2 million. I was late getting to this because I really wanted to make sure that my points were in order, and not just because I was away the past week. That's not the reason. It's because I was really wanted to make sure that the points are in order. But I always do this. I always do this when a campaign reaches over $1 million because at that point, I mean, honestly, as soon as the Elder Scrolls launched, it basically hit $1 million. And as soon as it launched, I knew that I would have to do one of these 5 reasons you shouldn't back. But usually when a campaign hits that point, there is a sort of degree of FOMO or fear of missing out, and that, I feel, sometimes drives us to purchase things that we won't necessarily enjoy to its fullest capacity. And that's what this series is about. It's not to pick on the little guy. I'm a big fan of Chip Theory games. In fact, it is because it is Chip Theory games that it makes me excited, and likely makes you excited, and made me contemplate backing. So let's get into what is exciting about the game. And I just want to give you a little bit of an overview of my experience about the game as well. And I'll turn to the GameFound page to help me with that, with some player aids. When I did the demo, there were 3 races that we could choose from, or 2 races actually. We could be Argonian or we could be Imperial. I played briefly with Maggie from Thinker Themer. Great channel. If you haven't seen them, go check them out. And then she had to leave, and so myself and the Chip Theory rep who was helping demo it, Andrew, we did kind of a dual player session together. And so the basics of it will be, you'll pick your race, and your race will give you this sort of starting health, stamina, attack, magicka, all of which you will put in, if I can find it, to this standard neoprene mouse pad with holes in it that Chip Theory is so famous for. You'll put these stats into here, and you're going to have to balance these stats. You can see you have 4 stats on this side, and then you also have 4 stats on the right side, and basically as you level these stats up, they're going to bounce against each other. So the Imperial that I chose, their specific thing was that I got a boost in some stats, but they had to be opposite each other, so that then capped out the maximum that they could hold, which already I think is a really interesting decision of how you're going to balance your stats and how you're going to level these things up. You're also gonna get some skills and some guilds and some regions. That's what all this on the campaign page is talking about. And these will determine, mostly the regions will determine what your goal is, what your objective is. As far as I know from the demo that I did, we did one sort of session, one play session. It took us about a couple hours to play through it. As far as I know, each session will be divided, and it seems the same through the campaign page, it will be divided into sort of 3 major quests. You're going to have an intro quest, a middle quest, and then a bigger sort of end quest. And sometimes you will converge onto these end quests, but you'll get there in a different way, and you'll level up your stats in a different way, and you might get additional keywords that will help you in the end quest. I don't know. I haven't seen an end quest. I've just seen the beginning one in the tutorial, in the demo that I did. But it gives me enough to know the flow of the game and to know how it plays. In terms of the campaign, you can see here it's going to be broken down, like it says in the campaign page, into 3 to 4 different things that you're going to be doing. Here's a here's a picture of the thing. It's hard to find the pictures that I want. But I think visual aids are good, especially when talking about this. You can see here, this is actually the map that I played. We would start in a corner here, and on your turn on a day, you'll get a certain amount of days to complete a campaign, or to complete a quest, rather. You'll get a certain amount of days to complete a quest, and then you can move 3 spaces. And if you move to a little skull, you might fight a battle. If you move to a little town, you get to interact with the town, and you flip open a town book and you say, what is there to do in this town, and what sort of items are there, and can I steal those items? Not yet, but I hope we can in the actual game. That's reason number 6. Give me the items to steal. I want them. And you basically run through this little map, and you're choosing how much time to spend to get to places on the far side of the map. Maybe you can investigate things to make things a little bit easier when you reach your main goal. For me, the main goal was kind of at the top there, which you can't quite see. The top up there, yeah. And I kind of blazed through there to get to the battle. Now, the battle systems, which they kind of cover in brief as well, there's going to be sort of 3 styles of combat. The main combat area will take place on this board. You're going to spawn yourself, you're going to spawn your baddies, you're going to interact with them in a tactical way. And the battle systems were fun. I actually quite enjoyed the cool cooldown system that they have, which makes it feel unique. However, the better system was the delve system. This was at kind of the end of the level. You start in a spot and you flip over tiles and delve cards, which tell you the shape of the neoprene map piece that you're going to randomly pull out, and that will determine what baddies spawn on it. And so each little room has its own unique characteristics. I think there was one where there was a giant pool in the middle we could heal with, or there was one where every space was lava and dealt damage, and so we kind of backtracked and ran away from the foes in there so that they could just keep taking damage in the lava like the stupid NPCs that they are. Something similar along those lines. And you explore the dungeon until you find whatever you're looking for. These are sometimes represented by symbols on the delve cards, and you kind of just have to keep on searching through the dungeon until you achieve your goal. That was what we did. To escape the dungeon is also really exciting because it feels like the Elder Scrolls, it feels like Skyrim. I've only played Skyrim, and so I will only be referencing this as Skyrim, even though I know it's not technically Skyrim because a different publishing company did that one. But it feels that way to me because you could leave the guards, and if you run out of their range, then they'll stop pursuing you. They'll kind of go back to their normal, oh, I guess I didn't see anything, and go back towards their inevitable path towards taking an arrow in the knee. Or in the scroll, I bet it's different for Elder Scrolls. They took an arrow in the scroll. So I thought that element of it was pretty interesting as well. Another thing that I actually really enjoy about this idea is that it's not a campaign game. It isn't. Your campaign, you're going to basically retire your character after 3 quests, 3 sessions. And so that works well in 2 ways. You can spend times leveling up your characters and pursuing a different pathway, and then after the 3 game sessions are done, you're done, and you get to pick a new race, you get to pick a new class, a new skill line, a new thing, and try that out, getting unique dice for those things as well. Oh yeah, down here, when I was, just as a visual example, when I was talking about the refresh system, you always start with kind of dead dice in your refresh system, and whenever you use dice, they go down into this row, and you can only refresh dice equal to your refresh ability. And so as you go along, you can make that refresh ability even more, letting you cycle your dice even more and more as you fill up this mat with either stats or dice. That's the back and forth. So that's the sort of general overview of what you're going to be doing. The main things you're going to be doing are engaging with this tactical combat aspect, either in that static hexagonal board or in a preset dungeon map, which I didn't get to experience, but I've learned about it from the campaign page, or through that delve system. But again, the tactics feel the same. The flow of combat is take your turn, do your moves, roll your dice, deal damage, see how they respond. Did you get far enough away from them in time to not take a bajillion hits of damage? You didn't? Well, you might be playing the game like me. That's the flow of the game, and the overmap kind of serves as a way to decide when you interact with those elements and when you go to town and get a bunch of items. That's it. Those are the two back and forth flows of the game, and it actually makes it for a pretty simple experience and definitely a fun one. I definitely enjoyed my time with the Elder Scrolls, and I'm thrilled that I got a chance to demo the game because it makes me even more certain about the 5 reasons you shouldn't back. I gotta stop being excited about the game and get into the actual meat of why you are here. But it is a good game, right? I'm personally excited about it because it's Chip Theory. I'm growing to like Chip Theory's products more and more. The more I experience of the company, the more I am interested in their products. And I knew this was going to be a hard one for me. But there are a few reasons why I think you shouldn't back and you should consider something else. And we're going to get into them right now. As always, if you have any questions about Elder Scrolls or whatever, please throw them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them to the best of my ability from what I have experienced. And if you have any angry things to shout at me, drop those in the comments as well. Because yes, I'm sorry to tell you, you can't get your favorite toy. And you should try to find out where I live and throw tomatoes at me, because honestly, I'm hungry and I could use some friggin' vitamins. But that aside, hopefully these can serve to calm down that FOMO, to take a breath, and to see if this is something that you should spend your money on. And reason number 5 is going to be, at least for me, the price point. And there's a lot of things that go into this price point, but I'll tell you, when I played this game, I was thinking, you know what? If it's at that $120 price point, I'd probably pull the trigger. I would. I was hoping for a $120 price point. I was desperate for it, and then I also knew that it probably wasn't going to be $120 because, let's be real, hardly any of their base games are at that $120 level, and I said, okay, well, if it's at $150 level, maybe I can pull the trigger on it, especially because $150 US is, more for me in Canada. But when I heard it was going to be $195 and then the all-in gameplay bundle was going to be $230, well, at that point, it's a $230 game, and let's not fool ourselves. Nobody who has been interested in this game has signed up for that base game pledge compared to the all gameplay bundle. 5,304 times versus 388 times. And honestly, for the price, if you know you're going to love it, it's very easy to upsell yourself. And honestly, I would imagine the better thing to do would be to upsell yourself right now, because $195 is a lot, $230 is equally a lot. I know my first point in the 5 reasons is don't get the base pledge, get the all-in bundle, but you need to be excited about it enough to get that all-in bundle and what it represents. Not the all-in bundle, I take that back. The gameplay bundle, let's say. The all-in bundle is ludicrous and you don't need any of that stuff whatsoever. You have dice trays, okay? You don't need a battle mat to put your neoprene on more neoprene. You don't need to do that. I know you may want to, but you don't. You don't need the premium health chips, as I can hear the screams of woe and agony from my Discord who love their premium chips. And yes, they do look really cool, but they're $50 Canadian. It doesn't matter how cool they look because you're going to be stacking things on them. You're just getting the extra weight. Spend that on a game. This is the same price as upgrading for more content from the base game to the gameplay bundle. And 100 times out of 100, that will be the better way to spend your money on. But the thing about this bundle is that it is so expensive. I mean, our hobby is, in essence, a luxury hobby, right? It is. We don't need any of the cool toys that we have. And so justifying it as these purchases get more and more increased, even though I truly believe Chip Theory when they say, listen, we've jam-packed this thing with more content than we ever have with any base game in our lineup. I believe them, and I can see the variations and stuff that they're going to be providing, and the additional stuff, the additional chips. The fact remains that these prices only keep going up. And at some point, depending upon your budget, depending upon your means, you gotta draw the line somewhere. especially as your game collections tend to grow and grow more and more as you get more and more involved in this hobby, the prices seem to increase even more, even though with the more games you collect, the less time you have to play them all and the less time you can actually justify in that price per play ratio. It is an expensive thing, and it needs to be something that you are over the moon excited about. And so this is your gut check. This is your excitement check. Why are you excited about this game? I honestly don't know if just because it's chip theory is a legitimate answer or not. I mean, for me, that's one of the driving reasons why I'm excited about the Elder Scrolls. I actually really like chip theory, like I said, and I'm growing to like their stuff more and more as I play it. And that's perhaps a really good reason. That being said, you also need to consider the outside factors of, will you get enough value from the premium nature that chip theory throws into all of their games, which I often feel is too much. Personally, for me, it's too much. And I know or feel like it takes a lot for me to buy in at that sort of premium level. And I think it takes something that is truly, truly special that should warrant you spending that money on. If you think it's going to knock it out of the park, great. And stay tuned, because we're going to talk more about gameplay implications throughout these 5 reasons. But I think there just needs to be a bar of how much you spend to an excellent game, a very good game, a good game, and a game that you'll play with your parents. And for me, the demo was good. The demo was quite good. But to warrant this and to warrant the extra cost versus their other titles, it needs to be mind-blowingly amazing. And I think it was just on par with their other stuff, let's say, with some noticeable changes. So that's reason number 5. Reason number 4, just quickly, well, I thought I was referencing things, but I'm large and in charge. Reason number 4 is going to be you're backing because of the free shipping. And for those of you who know this channel, you'll know how excited the announcement that it was free shipping was for me. It was. I love free shipping. I shout about the cost of shipping almost every week on Crowdfunding Countdown, and trying to factor in whether the shipping and the board game cost makes that enough of a value that it is one price and it should be represented in one price. And I think it is lovely that Chip Theory has this free shipping, especially to people for whom shipping is often very high, like ya boy up in Canada. But I also think that can sometimes make people pull the trigger without thinking. Like for me, when I heard it was free shipping, I almost was, I didn't care what the price was. I was like, I'm saving so much money, I'm in. But I also know that Chip Theory have always subsidized their shipping. That has been their hard line since, I don't know, years and years ago. As a company, they've always tried to make the shipping accessible, and they've always subsidized it for people in the US, in Canada, no matter where. If you're ordering something off of their web store, you have to hit a certain threshold for a certain price of shipping, often free shipping. And honestly, their prices are generally expensive enough that you will hit that threshold. I think this free shipping is a significant carrot for those who have had trouble getting Chip Theory games stuff in the past, and it's great that they can have that sort of built into their margins and take a hit on shipping it to those far off places in Canada. And I think if you live in one of those places and the value is there, that's great. If you live in a place where generally the shipping from Chip Theory is going to be pretty good anyway, and knowing that they take this stance on a lot of stuff, and knowing also that if you're in the EU, you might be able to save on VAT later if you get it from their web store. That's what a couple of my patrons were saying who live in the EU. They're saying, listen, I'm not going to buy it now because I'll just buy it later and I'll save the taxes based upon how I'm ordering or where I'm ordering it from. I'm not quite sure about the logistics of that, but I think for me this had to be a point because it was incentivizing me to pull the trigger. And the reason I bring it up is because it is not game related. It is a thing that is completely divested from the game itself, and I know my tendency is to just pull the trigger and say, yes, I like this thing. But for me, it doesn't consider any of the gameplay implications, and it doesn't consider any of the actual physical things that I'll be doing when I get it to the table. And so why am I then factoring it into my decision to purchase a game? When you get to this sort of price point, you need to love the game, as we've established. And honestly, those slight differences feel like they should be inconsequential in factoring in that decision. You'll see my chair sink lower and lower as I get pulled down into the vat of premium health chips that are just trying to devour me. Okay, that's enough about free shipping. That's enough about number 4. Let's talk more about the gameplay itself. Reason number 3 is that the character variability isn't going to be as significant as you hope it to be. When we look at the campaign page and we look at all these races, pick a race. You have all these 12 races or 10 races, whatever they are, 10 races. You have a little glimpse on what they can be. They're all going to have this one sheet that you're going to put next to your mouse pad with holes in it. And then beside that one sheet, you're also going to choose a starting sort of skill line and class. Like you have the two-handed skill, you have restoring light. I had the warrior skill. There was the thief skill in the demo, and I think that's probably changed to shadow now in the actual campaign page. I had the one-handed and shield with my Imperial. That's what I had. And so these skills give you a chance to level up your character, like this character building shows, and choose what special dice you're going to get. You can see the one-handed thing being dropped into here. This person has the one-handed and shield skill, and with that you can get a bunch of dice that will allow you to use your shield for blocking or your one-handed for stabbing. You're also going to get your class as well. Your class gives you even more variability than those skills because your class is kind of innate to yourself, and they give you a little few extra abilities that you can use. These are fun. These will absolutely switch up the experience a little, but I don't feel like it's going to be as drastic as we think. Because you can get so many skills, and you could potentially get the same skills if you visited the same place every time, I think the actual character variability isn't going to be as significant as other games in their lineup, for example. And I think that's by design of the thematic nature of the Elder Scrolls. In the Elder Scrolls, you can start off as whoever you want, and then you put your skill points into whatever you want. You can make anybody a thief, you can make anybody a magic user, you can make anybody a warrior. You can do that every single time, and as you're constantly cycling through these characters, you're getting these skills and these different skill dice, and you're customizing them, but that customization doesn't feel as drastic or as widely mind-blowingly replayable as it is currently pitched to be. I think it'll still be fun, and I think all the different skills will be interesting. You're going to have your own different skill dice as you level them up, but the fact that you have all these additional slots to pick and choose skills, you're going to have some melee skills, you might have some magic skills, you're going to switch your stance, your fighter stance up there. You see this little arc that shows what stance you're in. If you're doing two-handed, if you're doing magic wielding, you're going to switch that in between phases. And it'll be the combat situation that will determine what's the most effective and how you're going to switch back and forth. But when it comes down to it, it's really going to be like, hey, here's a big ranged attack or here's a big melee attack, right? And because you only level up your skills over the course of 3 sessions and then reset, there's a limit to how wide a reach that sort of thing can be. So I think if people are looking for that insane variability of classes that are completely different every time, I don't think you're going to see that as much as you might expect. Each of the races, for example, yeah, they're super fun, but for me, they're basically artwork. At one point, they have one innate ability, just one, and it's usually a once per battle thing. It's like, hey, you can do this one thing, or once per town event or something, or at least in the ones that I've seen. Again, they may change. But this one, the Argonian, is basically just a tank for one turn. It's like, hey, you're going to take damage, you don't have to take the damage anymore. Okay, that's not going to make me feel like super exciting, so it doesn't really matter that there are 10 different types of thing that I can be. The variability is going to come from elsewhere. The variability will come from the variety of delve cards and the variety of enemy encounters and the variety of enemies that you're facing, but it's just not going to come from the character variability itself, or at least I don't think from what I've experienced. Now, reason number 2, and this is a big one, this was almost my reason number 1 until something else came up. Reason number 2, you shouldn't back Elder Scrolls, is if you're looking for Too Many Bones 2.0. This has honestly frustrated me so much to see how much people have been comparing this to Too Many Bones. And it's comparable to Too Many Bones in the same way that it's comparable to Burn Cycle and comparable to, all of Chip Theory's other stuff in that you have characters who are chips and you roll dice. Congratulations. Is this Too Many Bones 2.0? No, it's not. It isn't. It really feels like its own unique thing. And I think that's a good thing. But I think also there have been so many comparisons out there that have been saying, yeah, Too Many Bones, this is based on the Too Many Bones system. No, it isn't. The way you level up your characters is completely different. You have such a wide variety of things. You have common skills that everybody can get. People can have the same dice. People can have the same roll. Too Many Bones, the excitement of Too Many Bones is the incredible variability of those characters and how they play completely different and how they are a tech tree. This is not that. I also heard some stuff out there about how, oh yeah, this is just a two-player game or something like that. And to me, it really feels like it's not. I enjoyed two-player, but I also see a lot of possibilities here for it being into that 3 to 4 player area, or maybe you just want to two-hand two characters. Whereas for me, Too Many Bones is a 1 to 2 player game, and that's it. I think there's a lot in here that makes it very different from Too Many Bones, and it's just lazy comparisons to compare it to Too Many Bones. Yeah, you roll dice. You slot your dice into a little cutout mouse board of a character sheet. Sure, you can raise your health stat and your stamina stat, but the flow of the battle feels different to me. I also understand the comparisons on that basic small clash mat. This is your basic clash style. It's always going to take place on the same grid. You're always going to kind of spawn in one area, and then the monsters and treasure will spawn in another area. But even the fact that there's treasure feels different than Too Many Bones. I get it because you're going to act, characters will act. Each character will have a unique ability on them that switches up the game. You're going to face characters based upon XP, I believe. I can see the comparisons, but I also think that just does both games a disservice and makes it not specific to the expectation of what you will get with either. For me, this is so much more campaign focused. And I know I said it wasn't a campaign game, but as you go through that map, let's see, right here, as you go across this world map, this is where that campaign element comes in because you're choosing, okay, am I just going to go to a town? Am I going to go to the town, see what's there, read through a little bit of flavor text, investigate, see who's in the town, see what I can learn, see who I can talk to, see if I can develop any extra skills, or am I going to make a beeline for the next fight? I found myself, because I wanted to speed up the game and I wanted to finish the tutorial and to finish the demo before the end of the day, before the end of the amount of time that I actually had set aside, I found myself ignoring some towns because I was speeding ahead, trying to get to the next section and trying to get to the next encounter. But it's so much more focused on not just doing encounter after encounter after encounter and then getting loot from Too Many Bones. This is more exploring the map, choosing your pathway, deciding what you want to do and what you want to investigate, and then going towards that final delve. The final delve itself is also what I had the most fun in, and I would hope to do more of in the game, where you get to reveal those pieces of map. That was really fun and was exciting. And I'm also interested about this final battle system in the dungeon on pre-made dungeon maps where you can explore, and it's more about managing that movement rather than being confined to a 4x4 grid like Too Many Bones. There's more room for that tactical maneuverability and paying attention to your opponent's range rather than just, oh, I'm a melee character, I need to go up and hammer somebody. Or I'm a ranged character, I need to stay away from them and just hammer them like you do in Too Many Bones. I think the key focus is on campaign and the completely different way of managing your actual battle mats and choosing what skills you level up and how to manage that system, and even how your abilities refresh, which in Too Many Bones is just a one-time use ability. No, you're building your dice pool so that you can use some now and then some on your next turn and create that flow. I don't like that there have been so many comparisons to it, and I think the comparisons exist because Too Many Bones is a fun game and has done really well and has received great accolades. And so, of course, people are going to pitch it as such because, it's Chip Theory, hey, it's Too Many Bones, that should be all you need to know to purchase. But I think you need to know a little bit more about the differences and if you will resonate with those differences. I think I would pull these out on a very different scale. And I think this gives me that sort of quick mini campaign feel that you don't get in too many bones. You're going through the different baddies. It plays the same. It's the same cycle. And here I'm actually interested to see the differences between the quests and read about the towns and figure out what skills I can get in town versus just fighting battle after battle after battle. So that's my rant on that. But the number one reason why you shouldn't back the Elder Scrolls is because they don't have a rulebook on the campaign page and they're not intending to put one out. And so all throughout this campaign, you're going to have to take the word of people like me who have had the ability and access to try out the demo for themselves and to see what it's like. And even still in that demo, we haven't scratched the surface of what this game will actually offer. And because there are not going to be any significant stretch goals, or at least any stretch goals that are completely exclusive, you need to get this campaign now or you're never going to get them. No, I believe Chip Theory has said there aren't going to be Kickstarter exclusives. Why should you back this game is really just timed in with bundled prices and to lock in your copy to make sure that they know how much they have to print, especially with it being so much content and the most expensive base game that they've released because of the added licenses on top of it. They're not going to print a bajillion amount of overstock, and so they're going to have to wait and see if there's more interest. This feels like the time to get it because of that. You're still going to have an opportunity to purchase this at a later date, likely for a similar price point. I know they say bundled prices. I know the Valenwood expansion you're getting for $35 instead of $45 right now. But if you are going to spend your hard-earned money and a lot of your hard-earned money on something, I feel like you need to be completely fully informed to a capacity that makes you feel comfortable and makes you feel excited to get the game, rather than having to take my word for it or other people's word for it or the glimpses of like demo content. For me, especially at the price point that it is, this feels like a wait and see. This feels like a wait until you can have enough information that you need to back. And maybe you have enough information. If so, great. But if you don't, if you feel like you don't know what the flow is going to be, if you have confusion on how the guilds will work together, heck, I mean, even in the updates, the fact that so many people have pledged now, when throughout the campaign, this 21-day campaign, there's going to be spotlights on character building, encounters, translations, combat overview, combat type, storage solutions, exploring the provinces, campaign, and the end games, and the Valenwood expansion that pretty much all of you are getting. And the fact that you have backed right now, or a lot of you have backed right now, or contemplating have backed right now, without even these updates of coming out, without even these small deep dives on those mechanics, feels like potentially you might be backing based upon just the IP and just the company and not the actual gameplay itself. And maybe you haven't investigated it fully enough to know that it's going to be a good game for you. This storage solution is going to be great. I'll tell you. I already know it is because you're going to have to save your campaign in between sessions. I think they've already talked about it in the stretch goals. Right here, an updated storage system where you can just click your board in together so everything stays all nice, and then you pull it out again and be ready to go. Honestly, that's going to be so good. But that's likely going to be in the base box. You can probably get that again. If you can't get it again, hey, you never have to listen to me ever again. I understand. But for my bet, if you don't feel completely comfortable pulling the trigger and spending a lot of money on something, and maybe it doesn't feel like a lot of money to you, great, you're very well off. Money's no object. Every time a big Kickstarter comes by, you click back and you get mounds and mounds of boxes of stuff you never play show up at your door. I know you do. I know you haven't unpacked those boxes. I know you have a bajillion big box campaigns that you've gone all in for and haven't even organized half of them. Sure, you do you. Honestly, I know I'm not going to reach you. But for the other people out there, I don't know if it's enough without being able to look under the hood. At least wait until all the updates are out. You know, GameFound has this lovely thing, this little button over here, this follow button, where you can get updates without pledging $1. You can get those updates, you can investigate further, and see if this is really the game for you or not. So that's it. Those are my 5 reasons you shouldn't back. For me, It's too much money. It is too much money for me. I wish it wasn't $230. I wish it wasn't $195. Even though the Valenwood expansion, when you actually look into the additional contents that you get of it, it really doesn't feel like it's worth it, honestly. I know I was like, well, you just might as well get everything for the Valenwood, but still, $35 for 2 different skill lines, 12 enemies, so 6 chips. These chips are double-sided. I love how they're doing that. That's another thing that should have gone into my excitement aspect of it, is that you have like a couple bags. You have a bag of 1 to 5 baddies, and you pull them out, and one side's a 1 and the other side's a 5. I think that's so effective, and the other side's a 10 and a 20-point baddie, basically. And so as you scale them up, you're like, okay, I'm going to draw this random person. So much better than having to like build a baddie queue like you do in Too Many Bones. Absolutely love that they do that. At the same time, it's $35 for 16 dice and 6 chips, right? Sorry, 8 chips. I don't know, it depends how much the regions are able to branch off, how many additional quests that give you, if those 7 cards add in that variability. And that's, again, tough to know without reading the full rule book. Like, I got the demo, and so I had somebody running most of that region setup stuff. And so I'm not as familiar with that. And that's a bad thing for when I'm considering purchasing it, because I don't know how I'm going to run it. I don't know if running that will start to feel tedious or if I'll enjoy it. I just don't know. And I don't have the things that will allow me to investigate that further in a way that makes me confident enough to back. So combined with that and the price point, even if I justify it as like, it would have been $170, because I would have paid $25 shipping. That's like their standard shipping that it was to Canada. Even if I kind of fudge the numbers in my own mind for that, and you absolutely can do if that helps you justify it, because hey, it's something you might have paid for in another life. Not being able to fully investigate it, it's tough. I mean, it's a fun game. It really is a fun game. I really liked my play of it. I would happily play it again. I just don't know if I would get my money's worth out of it at that increased price point. And that's really the comparison, right? Like, I'm not necessarily knocking the price point. I actually do believe that it is more stuff than their other games, and that just physically excites me. But I don't think I can justify another campaign style game, even if it's easier to get to the table, for that $320 Canadian, when I could buy the base pledge of, when I'm looking for something that costs in that 100 to 150, right? That's where it ultimately falls for me. Anyway, that's where I'm currently sitting. If you get it, let me know why you're backing. Let me know what you are excited about in the mechanics. And if you're not getting, let me know as well. I think down in the comments, it's always great to assemble a lot of reasons for and against. Hopefully this was a balanced view and it helped you make your decision. Man, this was a long one. I think I edited it down so it wasn't, but I talked a lot, and it's because I want it. That's probably why. It's because I want it, but I'm probably not getting it. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. My name's Chris George. I don't have a catchphrase, but I did have more fun playing this than I did when I played Skyrim. So, I can't believe I left you on that. FOMO, FOMO, FOMO. No toys for you. I'll see you in the next one.